On March 3, 2017, the release of Breath of the Wild marked a turning point in the long-running Zelda franchise. Gone were the more scripted, methodically paced adventures of past games, replaced by a sprawling open world offering an unprecedented level of freedom and exploration not seen since the very first game in the series, in addition to dungeons that could be tackled in any order the player chose, even the final one. Upon release, the game was met with commercial success and nearly universal acclaim, garnering a 97% on Metacritic, as well as 9s and 10s from various entertainment websites and publications. It was, if you'll pardon the pun, a game changer. With all this praise, the pressure was on Nintendo to create a sequel that could not only capture the magic of Breath of the Wild, but potentially surpass it. A tall order for any developer. But on May 12, 2023, Nintendo managed to exceed expectations with the release of The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. A direct sequel to Breath of the Wild, the game took everything great about its predecessor and expanded on it, adding new areas, bringing back traditional dungeons, and introducing the Ultra Hand building mechanic, which allowed players to construct weapons, vehicles, traps, and much more. But now that the game is a year old, fans have been wondering what's next for the series. Where does The Legend of Zelda go from here? How can you improve on what some consider the series' magnum opus? That's the question I'd like to explore. I'm JournoSkills, and if you enjoy my content, please leave a like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you can stay up to date on all my new videos. And with that out of the way, let's get into it. When it comes to future Zelda games, there are several possibilities. The most obvious is to continue with the current open world design from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. If this is the case, it seems unlikely that the next installment will take place in the same Hyrule from those games. We have, after all, explored nearly every corner of the map, from the loftiest skybound islands to the deepest subterranean caverns. There's not much more blood to be squeezed from this proverbial turnip, at least in its current form. Perhaps a time skip could revitalize this well-trodden landscape. The Hyrule we've become accustomed to over the past 2 games might look and feel vastly different in the far-flung future. The passage of time could reduce well-known landmarks to ruins and give rise to new towns, cities, dungeons, and races. Traveling beyond Hyrule is also a possibility. Some gamers yearn for a return to Termina from Majora's Mask. Though this seems doubtful, as Termina seemingly disappeared at the conclusion of the game. The introduction of a brand new, never-before-seen land seems more plausible. Somewhere far beyond Hyrule's shores. A phantasmagorical dreamscape filled with otherworldly flora and fauna unlike anything we've seen thus far. The possibilities are endless. Or maybe the series will go back in time. After all, Zelda is no stranger to prequels, evidenced by Ocarina of Time, Skyward Sword, and the like. A game set in the era of Hylia featured in the non-canon Skyward Sword manga would allow us to experience the surface from Skyward Sword in its glorious heyday, and introduce us to the OG goddess Hylia and her first chosen hero. Sadly, this would also mean the return of a certain polarizing character who shall remain unnamed. There are more possibilities, such as Hyrule's forgotten neighbors Holodrum and Labrynna, but it's more likely that these locations are being saved for potential Oracle remakes, especially considering how well the remake of Link's Awakening was received by both fans and critics. And speaking of linear Zelda experiences, some fans are hoping Nintendo will ditch the purely open-world formula in favor of a more guided, streamlined outing. In an interview with IGN, series producer Eiji Aonuma shared his thoughts on the possibility.
It's interesting when I hear people say they prefer the old entries because I am wondering, why do you want to go back to a type of game where you're more limited or more restricted in the types of things or ways you can play? But I do understand that desire that we have for nostalgia, and so I can also understand it from that aspect.
This statement is quite vague, which is in keeping with Nintendo when discussing their future projects. But it seems doubtful that we will see a return of the classic formula anytime soon, save for potential spin-offs and more remakes of older titles. Nintendo is Nintendo after all. With nearly every game they release, treasure troves of content and mechanics are left on the cutting room floor. Leftovers that often end up in other titles. Spare parts that, in this case, could be specifically tailored for open-world experiences. If the next Zelda game continues the open-world trend, I would personally like to see a more Witcher-like approach to dynamic world building, with more NPCs, richer character interactions, and deeper, more involved side quests. On the other hand, I wouldn't turn my nose up at a classic linear approach that's more synonymous with old-school Zelda titles. Though I love Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, Twilight Princess will always be my all-time favorite Zelda game. I know I'm in the minority here, but I believe there's a certain beauty in simplicity, and sometimes the path to the future can lead us down some old familiar roads. Ultimately, whatever route Nintendo takes with the next Zelda game, one thing is certain. It'll be a blast to play, and in the end, that's what matters most. But what do you all think? Where would you like to see the series go from here? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Lastly, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for watching this video. Take care, and I'll see you again soon.